So what we're going to talk about tonight is something that I think is the way psychology should go, positive psychology. Remember, for many, many years, people talk about psychology and going to a psychiatrist, all about problems, right? What's wrong with you? What illness do you have? Where do you fit in the DSM, right? Whereas we're going to talk about what makes people healthy. What do you want to have more of in your life? Okay, so this idea of positive psychology, I'm going to talk a little bit about this Cohen Institute too. I always have to tell people I did not name this. I trained many, many interns and residents over the years, and I'm still part of that training consortium for the Arizona Psychological Association. My interns and residents, at one time, we started something called Scottsdale Psychologist, some name, big long name that we came up with. And one day when we were still doing the planning for a nonprofit, they told me, would it be okay with me if they changed the name to the Cohen Institute? And I cried because I would never name anything after myself. That's not me, but they thought that was what it should be. So that made me feel very good inside that that's what they thought. Let's go. So this Cohen Institute, we're independent, nonprofit, and the idea is that we wanted to provide exceptional services for students and families. And when we first started in 2017, we had some grants and we started doing suicide prevention programs in high schools with that grant money. And then COVID happened. And people didn't go to schools, children didn't go to schools, we didn't go to schools, and we really haven't gotten back to doing that kind of work to the extent where we would like to again, because we've gotten so busy doing student evaluations. Because from referrals, parents who have brought their children to us, because we help parents figure out, and students, how they learn best. Not do they have a disability, is there something wrong with them, do they meet this criteria in the DSM, but how can they be the best they can be? So again, back to that positive psychology piece. So the objectives tonight is that we're going to talk about mental health as more than the absence of illness. So mental health doesn't mean you're not sick, that makes you healthy, okay? What is mental health? How is this positive psychology redefining who people are and where we want to go? I'll give you a real short history and some background information, not a lot. And we're going to include some of those underlying concepts on well-being. What makes life worth living? And when you get up in the morning, what makes it worth living for you? What are those concepts? And I'm going to focus on the current work that I do, working with students with social, emotional, and behavioral difficulties in high school. So I have been doing that for the last at least 5 years, could be more. I kind of lost track, might be 6 now. But what I focus on with those students, and they all have diagnoses, they all have their own psychiatrists, they're usually all on medication, they're all in therapy. So what we don't need to do is sit around and talk about their anxiety or their depression or their ADHD. What we talk about instead is, how do you make yourself better? What is this thing called well-being? What is happiness? How do we make ourselves the best we can be? Remember Maslow talked about that thing called self-actualization? Remember that from years ago? That's where we want to go. The positive side, not looking at all those negative pieces, because I hear that all the time. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. All of you undergraduate, all psych majors, hand up. Who's a psych major? Not many. What are the rest of you majoring in? Why are you here? What are the other majors? Healthcare? Okay. Anything else? Health, American, okay. Anything else? Social work? Okay, is that way? Financial? Organizational management. Wow, okay. There's a big organizational piece in psychology too, right? Okay. Exercise science. Okay. Well, this helps, right? Because you want to be the healthiest you can be. And how do you get to that point? So, positive psychology and what is mental health? We're going to talk about something called well-being, and that mental health is not just the absence of illness. So if you don't have a DSM-5 diagnosis, that doesn't mean you're healthy. That's not what mental health is. So we're going to talk about what is mental health, the idea of well-being, because that's how this positive psychology got started, with a happiness kind of factor. And then it moved into something that we'll talk about more, that looked at more characteristics, not just happiness. In fact, I do whole units of happiness with students too, and that is great fun. The American psychologists did a whole issue on happiness, what makes people happy. And it's really interesting when I put slides up and kids try to guess who the happiest people are. And I'll ask you, profession-wise, who do you think is the happiest? Anybody want to guess? Come on, who do you think is the happiest professional group? And it could be, I don't mean profession like someone, doctor, lawyer, I mean any job, any job. Who do you think is the happiest when they go and ask people? Yeah.
Occupational therapist.
No. Okay, another guess? Who do you think's happiest? Somebody raise their hand? What is? It would depend on the person. But if I went out and talked to many, many people across the country, what work group do you think comes out as the happiest work group? And it would depend on the person, because in that work group there might be unhappy people. But in terms of looking at group norms, which group do you think would be the happiest? Want to take a guess? Anybody?
Education.
Teachers? They're not that low. I was surprised. Yeah. No, they're not the happiest. Anybody else? Come on. Who's the happiest? What do you think? Farmers? Good guess. No. Anybody else? Come on. Yeah.
An occupation that gives you an opportunity to serve people, like when you provide service.
It's one of the things that makes people happy when we talk about happiness, yeah, and well-being. Yes. Okay. But what group do you think that is? Healthcare? No. Okay, but they're up there.
Culinary?
Hmm?
Culinary?
Culinary. I like that. It's clergy. And I have to tell you something, in high school, I have a lot of high school students who don't even know what clergy is. Do you know what clergy is? You're shaking your head. Priests, rabbis, ministers, those people. That's the happiest group. You're right on, helping people. Yeah. A sense of purpose is one of those things coming up. And then I take all of these things out of that issue of the American psychologist on happiness and put the cards out and have two groups, and then they have to try to arrange them from happiest to least happiest. And I won't tell you who the least happiest is, because you don't want that job. Okay. So background information. The ancient Greeks talked about well-being. Ancient Greeks. So they were talking about what is well-being. When Freud was talking about all the different kinds of neuroses, Jung was talking about collective unconscious, more focused on well-being. And then when we get to the humanistic psychologists, I mentioned Maslow, Rogers, that's where we really get into the ideas of well-being. For background. Current, the name in positive psychology is this Martin Seligman. That's the big name, and he's often called the father of positive psychology. So his initial theory talked about happiness. That's what he focused on, authentic happiness, and looking at positive emotions, engagement, being involved in what you're doing, and meaning or purpose in life. And then he saw that that's probably not enough, that well-being, and then he moved to this idea of well-being. And so rather than being one-dimensional, just happiness, we have this 5 pillars of PERMA, and we'll talk about those 5. Okay, so we moved from one thing, well-being or happiness. So how to measure well-being, we have a past, present, and future. In the past, well-being, feelings of well-being, contentment, satisfaction with your life. In the present, that idea of flow or engagement in what you're doing and a feeling of happiness. And for the future, it would be hope and optimism. Makes sense, doesn't it? Here's that PERMA. Now that Seligman moved from just looking at happiness to looking at all these other things: positive emotion, engagement, positive relationships, having meaning in what you're doing, and a feeling of accomplishment. He's at the University of Pennsylvania, and I often have students, I recommend that they go and look at the positive psychology work done at the University of Pennsylvania. They have been having students, adults, people in the community fill out questionnaires and collecting more and more information about positive psychology. What makes people have this feeling of well-being? More than happiness, but well-being. So my current practice is with high school students, like I said, and these students are all in programs, special programs for students with social, emotional, and behavioral disorders. And some of the materials that I use is a program called Positive Action, and then a lot of things that I have developed myself to go along with their needs. Whatever I feel that their needs are, the teachers identify, the students identify their needs, then we put things together to help them overcome, deal with some of the things going on in their life. Again, it's not therapy. We don't do therapy in schools, and these students all have therapists in the community. So the idea is for them to start seeing the positive side of life rather than talking about their anxieties and depressions and attention problems and stress and trauma that they've had. That program, Positive Action, is based on cognitive behavioral therapy, the basis for it, and talks about things like logical versus illogical thinking. Are all of you familiar with that? So sometimes when people are upset, they're using illogical thinking. We see that a lot in people who are depressed. You fail one math test and you become the person who, I can never do math, I can never go through college, I can't do this. One friend doesn't call you back, or one relationship goes south. I don't have any friends. I'm not any good. No one likes me. That's the illogical thinking. And then we try to change those illogical thoughts into logical thoughts. Okay, so if you failed one math test, what might be a logical response to failing that math test rather than saying, I can't graduate from college, I can't do math, I can't have this major that requires a math class? What might be a logical thing that you could say because you failed that math test?
You decided to go out with friends the night before?
I can't.
You decided to go out with your friends the night before?
Oh, good one. Maybe I should study. I went out with my friends. Good. That's a nice logical way of looking at that. Perfect. Yeah. Maybe I need somebody to help me get a better understanding of the material. Yeah, good. Logical.
My skills are not there yet, but it doesn't mean that I'm a bad student.
My skills aren't there yet. I can work on it. I can do more. Excellent. So you guys know how to do that. But I need to train students to do that, because they don't have that logical thinking. When something bad happens to them, someone has a fight with them, teacher says the wrong thing to them, they immediately catastrophize and get into this illogical thinking, which takes you down a really bad pathway, right? So teaching them to engage in logical thinking. That cognitive reframing, when a situation happens, how do you reframe that? We do cognitive reframing even when we know, say, you're an anxious student, okay? You have test anxiety. So let's reframe that into what's positive about having test anxiety. What could you say? Yeah.
We would have a better attention to the question.
Wow, yes, you have more attention to the questions. You might study harder. What else? Hmm? Say it louder. understanding that you might have a better understanding of the consequences of, yeah, yeah. So, and like people who have attention problems, what is that cognitive reframing of attention problems? Because many of us have attention problems, right? All of us do at some time. Some of us do all the time, but and most of us have a little bit of attention. So, what's the positive thing about having attention problems when you're reframing that for people? What do people, yeah,
Or you're aware.
more aware? Yeah, yeah, more aware. And what do we know about people with attention problems? Who's more creative? People with attention problems, yeah, because they don't think in that straight direction, do they? They can look at the big picture, they can look at it from multiple sides. So that's what you want to help people figure out. And then attribution theory, is it all depending on you? Is it other people? Was I the one totally responsible? And that instrumental self. So that ability to create a positive, healthy view of the world, I think, comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy. This positive action program, like I said, is based on cognitive behavioral therapy. And what it tries to help students understand is that our feelings, thoughts, and behaviors are all connected. Okay? So if I'm feeling really sad for whatever reason, I'm going to have some sad thoughts. And my behaviors are going to go in that direction too. If I am engaging in negative thoughts about being angry, my feelings might be angry, and I might engage in some angry behaviors. Maybe I'll yell at someone, throw something, okay? Ignore someone, something angry. What we want students to understand is that you can change that sequence by changing any of those. What do you think is the easiest thing for most people to change? When you think about a time when you were sad, you had sad thoughts, you were feeling sad, and you were acting sad, maybe you're crying. What do you think is the easiest way to move from that negative cycle, that negative feeling, into more positive? What do you think is the change your behavior? Yeah, yeah, exactly. They'll talk about you can change any of them, but I think the easiest thing, definitely for me, and I think for most people, is to change your behavior, right? Say that you're feeling sad and you're thinking about sad things and maybe you're crying and you decide the behavior I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and help my neighbor cut their grass. Positive thing. That positive thing makes your neighbor smile, say thank you. That makes you start feeling better. You start thinking, I can help other people. This feels good. Easiest thing I think to do is to change your behavior. We'll look at a little video that I often show the students tonight. I'll show it to you. And it's about people watching other people do positive things. And just by watching it, it makes you feel happy. So that's when we see people doing positive things. Have you ever been in a room where everybody's sad? How do you feel in that room? Even if you didn't walk in sad.
I smile.
You smile.
Smiles are contagious.
That's right, they are contagious. But most people, if you're in a room of sad people, how do you start feeling? That's contagious too, right? How about if you're in a room of angry people? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when we watch people doing positive things, it gives us a good feeling inside and it gives us positive feelings too. So how do we move our brain from negative to positive? How do we identify and develop positive emotions like joy, hope, interest, and compassion. I mean, that's the big thing, right? So, how do we take our brain and force students with social, emotional, behavioral problems? We find that their brains are often very negative. They often have those irrational thoughts. They often catastrophize. They often attribute everything to themselves. You know, if there's a bad day, it's because they made it a bad day. So helping them move from that negative to positive is very difficult. And how do we then identify and develop positive emotions like joy, hope, interest, and compassion? And I'm going to show you a great TED Talk from an amazing psychologist that I even have parents watch to help their children become more positive. Because this is a skill you can learn, I can learn, we can all learn. So let's watch it. He's one of my favorite speakers. He has other YouTube videos and TED Talks also. But that is something that I think is so powerful. Like I said, I even send that to parents to do with their children who are having difficulty with feeling very negative, not being positive about the world. That you can change your own brain from negative to positive. And he's got the research that shows in just 20 some days, doing that 5 things every day, you will change your brain. What were one of the things that he talked about that you should or be easy to do you think, that he talked about?
Gratitude and journaling.
Okay, let's think about that. Gratitude. From current slide, let's go there, and we'll go to the next one. Being grateful, gratitude. Can you all think of 3 things that you're grateful for right now? Think about them in your own head. One of the activities that we do with students, besides thinking about 3 things they're grateful for, is after they know each other, and we actually did it at our own Thanksgiving the last 2 years, is everyone writes on a card something that they're grateful for, okay? And we collect them, fold them in half and collect them. I read them, and then you try to guess who wrote it. I mean, because we have little kids in our family, anybody who saw that would know that the 5-year-old wrote it. So that's why I read them. And then you try to guess. And we do that with the students in the classroom too. And it becomes like a game. And most of the students I work with are male, and they love games and competition. So you get points if you guessed. So you don't know each other, we can't play, but think of 3 things that you're grateful for right now. And anybody want to share their 3 things after they think about them? Anybody want to share one? If not, yeah,
This current talk right now.
thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful that you said that too. Anybody else? Something you're grateful for? Yeah.
My dog.
Your dog. Okay. Anybody else? What are you grateful for? Yeah.
Come back to school.
Coming back to school?
My family.
Your family. Anybody else? Yeah. Your job. Your job. Okay. Anybody else? What are you grateful for? Yeah. Your professors. Okay. Did you have your hand up or you're just moving your hair? What are you grateful for? Your health. So thinking about those 3 things every day that we're grateful for puts us in a different place. Can you see how that would work, right? Because it focuses us on the things that are good in our lives, the positive things. And I took my little thing away, so I have to move. Okay. Another thing you talked about, that was the last one that we have students do. We have a mailbox in the classroom. Periodically, we have them write something positive to a teacher in the classroom, to another student. They don't have to sign their name, but they put that student's name on the outside of the thing that they've written, and we put it in the box, the mailbox, and periodically the teacher pulls them out and reads them. But just think about doing something kind like that when we talked about changing our behavior. If you, when you're feeling kind of sad, decide you're going to help somebody else, and maybe that help is just calling somebody that you haven't talked to for a while just to tell them that you're thinking about them and wondering how they're doing and care about them. That makes you feel good too, right? To do those things. Anybody think of times when they've emailed someone, called someone, those random acts of kindness? I mentioned going and cutting somebody's lawn. I wish somebody come and do that for us sometimes. But anybody think of things that you've done? Just random acts of kindness? Want to share? I'm going to watch a video of that, random acts of kindness. Okay. Journaling. He talked about journaling, reliving a positive experience. When I work with high school students with social, emotional, behavioral problems, they hate to write. So I tell them to just think about it in their head, talk about it. It's hard for them to talk about journaling. So just thinking about a positive experience. So if you think about something positive that's happened to you in the last 24 hours. Think about something positive that's happened to you in the last 24 hours. And when we talk about positive actions, the students have a lot of trouble thinking of things that are major positive things, like they saved somebody's life or they did something really important or they cut somebody's grass. But little things you can do, just saying hello to someone who you usually don't say hello to could be a positive action, right? Opening a door for someone. Can you think of any positive experience that you've had? Maybe someone did something positive for you in the last 24 hours. Anybody want to share? I, I, your coworkers took a shift for you today. Awesome, awesome. Anybody else? What a nice thing to do. Something positive in the last 24 hours. Yeah,
Cooking dinner for everyone.
you were cooking dinner for everyone? Awesome, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah? You got something from a professor you haven't seen in a long time? Is that, you got to talk to someone you hadn't seen in a long time? Awesome, awesome. So that focus on positive things, you can almost feel how it starts changing your brain, right? Mindfulness is another big one we try to help students with, that ability to be connected to the here and now. And one of the mindfulness activities that we try to get students to do on a regular basis, which is very, very simple, that I'm going to have all of you do, okay? Because we try to get students to be aware of their sensory levels at different times. Not saying that one is bad and one is good, because that a lot of times people think, oh, if I'm too elevated, that's a bad thing. But think about it. There are times, like if you're going to take a test, you don't want to be all laid back, right, and relaxed. If you're going to go into a job interview, you don't want to be all laid back and relaxed, right? So you need that higher level of sensory awareness. But if you want to go to sleep at night, you need to decrease that level of sensory awareness, right? So you need to learn how to do that so that you can have your level of awareness match the situation. So how do you learn to do that? One of the ways is through mindfulness. And this is a really easy mindfulness exercise. Ready? So I want you to, you don't have to close your eyes or anything, look around the room and identify 5 things that you can see. 5 things that you can see right now. Okay? 4 things that you can hear right now. One could be the sound of my voice. 4 things you could hear right now. Quiet room. 3 things that you can feel right now. Might be your bottom on the chair, your shirt. 2 things that you can smell right now. One thing you can taste right now. Okay? That's a connection between mind and body. Okay? Gets our brain that's going from here to there to there to there, thinking about what happened yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going on in an hour, in 10 minutes, etc., to concentrate on the here and now. And that's what mindfulness is about. How do you change your mind to concentrate and focus on the here and now, that mind-body connection? And that's a real simple one to do, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I've seen preschool, not preschool, but early elementary school teachers can do that with their students. I've seen them do that. When they come in from lunch recess and they're kind of all that higher level of alertness and they need to be less alert, they'll do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with them, and it helps them connect their mind and body. When I want to fall asleep at night, I don't get through that twice and I fall asleep. Okay? So it's a good thing to do as a sensory strategy to change your level of awareness. And the other thing you talked about, which I believe in totally, is exercise, taking care of your body, that we should all exercise however we like to do that. I think you're in exercise, that's, but what is your program called? Exercise physiology or, yeah, okay. So I mean, you know that's true. And I've always encouraged people, to exercise, to have a daily routine or as much as possible. Okay? So they're the 5 things that you can do. I give this to students when they're leaving for the summer and ask them to try to do it all summer long. I know they don't, but um, to help you change your brain from negative to positive. Okay. The last one I'm going to show you is a video that will change your life. That was the other one that was down here that will make you feel positive. Okay. So we try to help students understand that the things that we're talking about are not major things, but little things that you can do every day. And doing those things or even watching those things makes you feel good inside. Okay. And leads to that sense of well-being. And we can do that. Questions? We have 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Questions? Anybody have? Question? Mm-hmm.
So, do you have one advice for me? So I'm looking to come with a social worker that specializes with, uh, uh, that specializes in intellectual disabilities with kids and adults.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one piece of advice that you can give me?
Advice, I think, to we need special education teachers and we need teachers that work with students with intellectual disabilities. So it's a great field. I'm glad you want to do that. Yeah. So pursue it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. I think that they understand not a great difference. These are students who have been ill for a long period of time. They're high school students, and many of them were identified as having serious emotional disabilities way back in elementary school. So, but I see that they have that ability to see the positive things that they can do, and we can talk about positive things, which to me is a big improvement. Yes, yes, the positive. Mhm. happiness? How can you spread happiness to the the group activities that you can do to help people be more happy? Is that what you're thinking? Uh-huh. As in a, I I don't think I understand. Do you mean in your clubs, would there be things that you could take to your club to do? Yeah. I mean, I think you could start out each club meeting by maybe making positive statements to each other, or writing those notes that if people don't want to say positive things, writing those notes that have no, your name's not on it, but then you can pick them up and read them. That somebody said this about, because that feels good. It feels good when you see that someone in the group, and you don't have to identify who wrote it, that someone in the group said that you were a good friend to them, or that they appreciated the fact that you wanted to have a meeting that was more positive, whatever. If, it, don't you like when people compliment you? Well, we all do, right? And say positive things to us, right? So that's where we're going with this, trying to change that culture, because high school boys with social, emotional, behavioral problems tend to be pretty negative with each other, right? And people in general tend to be pretty negative with each other often. So establishing that idea that we can be kind to each other, we can say positive things, and it feels good. It's healthy. Anything else? They're going to close this place down, right?
You talk about how the feeling, thought, and behavior cycle, kind of changes,
Mm-hmm.
positivity. Do you think that it's like, where do you think belief systems come into that? Like, do you have to change your belief system to change your behaviors, or is it the other way around? You like sort of fake it till you make it?
Yeah. I don't think you have to change your belief system. I think that those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected. And I think your belief system sometimes can influence how you think, and it can make it more negative if your belief systems are pretty negative, like people in the world are not good, or they're anti whoever you are, or something like that. So that those beliefs can make you have more negative thoughts, right? And you can get into that negative cycle, but you can change that negative cycle. And it might not be touching the beliefs, but by doing more positive things. And that makes you focus more on what's positive in the world. The negative's still going to be there, right? We're not going to solve world problems by being positive, right? We'll make ourselves have a healthier life, and we'll have more well-being. That's not going to. And what, he got one person to paint, and another person, and another person, and another person, right? So people see positive things happening, they start doing positive things too. Okay? Thank you for your attention. You guys are awesome. Thank you.